quite often we stand in the way of progress. And you have to put your feelings and your hopes and your dreams aside so that you can help give your child exactly what it is that he or she needs.
Welcome to Transforming the Toddler Years, a Core 4 parenting podcast for conscious, cycle-breaking parents ready to turn toddler tantrums into teachable moments. Hi, I'm Cara Tyrrell, a lifetime lover of littles, mom to 2 grown and flown girls, and an early childhood educator. Through the show, I teach you my collaborative parenting methodology for nurturing your little human's mind, body, and spirit. Because how you connect and collaborate in the first 5 years is how you raise happy, healthy kids who grow into the best version of themselves and find true success in school and life. My guest today is Jodi Klaristenfeld, a NICU mama here to tell you her story of delivering her little girl Jenna at 28 weeks and what came next. Being a preemie mom has solidified truth for her that our life's work is always to learn something new. And it led her to create Flourish, a website devoted to helping fellow preemie and special needs families by giving them much needed support. Her story will inspire you. It will motivate you. It will give you hope no matter where you are in your parenting journey. If your child's birth experience was something that you did not expect and you had some trauma to work through, this episode is for you. Welcome back to the Transforming the Toddler Years podcast. My guest today is Jodi Klaristenfeld. She is a mom of a preemie, a sweet one who's now 5. So this episode's going to give you so much hope if you are going through this in this particular time of your life. Welcome, Jodi. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks so much, Cara, for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, I have to say, my top listened to episode of 2023 was another NICU mom. So this is a space where people really look to others to feel held and loved and safe and supported in their birth story that did not go the way they expected it to.
You know, that doesn't surprise me because as moms, right, it takes a village and you need to find your village. And it's that much harder when you're a NICU and a preemie mom. As much as prematurity is prevalent, there still aren't people probably in your immediate circle who you'd go to for advice or for help that will have experienced it. So the fact that people really resonated and took to your podcast about it makes sense to me because the NICU community, once you're in it, we're a tight-knit group.
Yes, absolutely. The Transforming the Toddler Years course is opening up again for our spring cohort, and I am so excited to invite you to join us. How has this year been for you, really? Take stock. Was it a challenging year in daycare or preschool? Are you noticing there's spaces that you just really want to lean in and support your child's mindset and their personal growth so that they can truly be their best selves as you go into the summer to have some fun and then start another school year? That's why I'm here. Prioritizing your personal relationship with your children so that you can teach them the real world skills that allow them to be successful outside of your home. That's my job. And that's what the course does. We start on May 14th. So go have a look and scroll through all the different modules we will be diving into. The mindset and perspective piece of parenting, cracking open the hood and looking into your baby's brain, talking about when they develop and how those skills come to be in their little growth patterns. I would love to see you in the course if this is your season. if this is your time and if I seem like the right teacher and the right coach to get you to your conscious, collaborative parenting goals. Just go to caratyrrell.com/transform and let's get started. Can you tell us your story, a little bit about, how this happened to you and how you moved through it in those early days?
I tell people that I had the easiest 28 weeks of pregnancy and then the hardest 4 days. I ended up being so sick with HELLP syndrome and preeclampsia. Thankfully, I didn't know how sick I was. On the fourth day of me not feeling well, when I started to see double and blurry, and I went to my OB and he was like, okay, so we're going to go to the hospital and you're not going to leave until this baby comes out. And I was like, what are you talking about? She's not due for another few weeks. He goes, well, my sonogram machine isn't really working that well. I think the hospital has a better one. So let's just take a look. And if my suspicions are correct, we'll have the baby today. And if not, I'm wrong. No big deal. And I'm like, okay. But I was also so sick, I don't even think I fully processed what he was saying. Thankfully, I wasn't alone. I was with my mother. My husband was off in Europe because it was 12 weeks before she was supposed to come. So he was taking his last big business trip. And my mom looked at my OB and she was like, we're doing what? And literally, we walked into the hospital at 1 o'clock. She was born at 3:16, and I met her 3 days later. There was a crazy confluence of events, but also so fortuitous and fortunate that I'm grateful, because I only found out later that we would not have made it through the night. So I'm forever grateful and thankful that he was the picture of calm, my mother was the picture of calm, and that they were able to get Jenna out quickly and save both of our lives.
Oh, Jodi, it's likely I'll cry, and that's okay. I make people cry all the time with my story too. I'm the mom who didn't make it through the night, and her baby did not come home with her. And so I'm just so happy that you had the experience you had, even though that NICU experience was a real challenge, especially because you were in recovery as well. What were you in? What type of mental state were you in those 3 days? And then when you finally were able to be part of Jenna's first few days?
Well, before I answer that, I just really, and now I am crying, also wanted to say how truly sorry I am. I mean, I wish words could help change the outcome or something, but I'm just so sorry, and know that your child lives on in you and your husband, and you know, I there are no words, but I'm giving you a virtual hug.
Thank you. Emma Grace is the most special spirit, the gift that just continues to drive me to empower parents to realize that it's their relationship with their kids that matter more than anything in the beginning. And so she's here and she's there.
And Jenna's middle name is similar. It's Faith. Grace, Faith. They're very similar meanings.
Yes.
And I agree with that. Like, the relationship with your child is like no other.
Yeah. And that NICU experience, that's all you have, right? All you have is that minimal physical contact, the holding of a finger, or that eye contact when the mask comes off, and it's all emotional. It's all sensory. What journey did you take in that time frame?
Those first 3 days, it's interesting you asked me that. I don't know if I asked for her until I met her. And I asked my OB that question. I asked my husband that question. And the truth is, they said to me, it doesn't matter whether I asked for her or not, because I was so sick. And the fact that one of my first things that when I finally got out of the magnesium haze, what they call it, from giving you so much magnesium, was that they were saying to me, you're an amazing mom already because that's your concern. So I can't tell you what my mental state or anything was, except for the fact I know that I was hallucinating from the medication and that I didn't even recognize family members. So there was so much going on in my body that I couldn't even, I guess, or my body wouldn't let me focus on her. And then I do remember walking into that NICU for the first time, and I wanted to take the wheelchair, and my husband wouldn't let me. He's like, "You're strong, you can do this." And then our room was the closest to the NICU. And I remember walking into the NICU and seeing her name on the isolette and just losing it. My husband saying, "Well, does she look like a Jenna to you?" And I'm like, "Of course she does. What kind of a question is that?" And but then I looked at her closer and I got really, really scared. She was so tiny. Some of her skin was almost, I don't want to say translucent, right? But you could see many of the veins, just a different color than what normal skin is. And I was afraid to hold her. I didn't hold her that first time I met her, but I did hold her the next day.
Mm.
And in not holding her that first day, when I saw her, again, I thought something was wrong with me, that I wasn't going to be a good mother because I didn't feel that bond or that sense of, this is my child. I have to pick her up. I have to shower her with kisses. But I think the overwhelming fear and being so scared and still not understanding
Mm.
what had happened took over.
Wow. Oh my gosh, Jodi. I knew this was going to be a really raw and vulnerable episode, but I'm like right there with you. I'm observing your experience room to room right now. And I just hear all the layers of the trauma, the medical trauma, and then the emotional trauma, and then the fear based trauma. And through all of it, what I always say to every mom I work with and every dad I work with, if you worry, it means you're already the best possible parent you can be in that moment. And that was you.
And my OB had the same message. And I will say this, all the parents who work with you, I know are very fortunate, but even more so that you say that to them because parents really do need to hear that, especially when there's so many other extraneous forces or things going on outside of your control and you feel lost. And so all you can do is worry. And then in your thoughts of, well, why am I worrying? I shouldn't, right? But someone saying to you that the fact that you are worrying when there are 100 other things going on at the same time, when they tell you that you're a great parent, it really does help your mindset and give you confidence that you didn't have moments before.
Yes. And that's what we have to do. We have to show up for each other and just be that light and that teeny bit of hope that the next minute can be managed and the next day can be managed.
I mean, my OB in those moments when I said to him that second day when I said, "Oh, and I didn't even want to hold her. I was scared." He goes, "You tell me how it feels after you hold her." He goes, "You have and I had his cell number, whatever." He goes, "I want to know how it is that you feel." And when I did I said to him, "She feels like home. I feel like I'm in the right place. And she, I know, is in the right place where she can get the best care." I said, "It's the best feeling in the whole world." And he's like, "See, I told you."
Oh, she feels like home. They do. Every single one. To that point, you were surrounded in the NICU by other parents who had their own unique story to arriving there. And then each of you had this really unique human being. And I know that something that's really important to you is honoring the preemie baby's timeline for success, whatever that means for them, and not getting super wrapped up in these checklists and milestones. When did that become a real, not just understanding, but like way of believing and living for you?
I think that really became a way of life for me after Jenna came home from the NICU. While she was in the NICU, I couldn't even focus on the next day, let alone milestones of when she would be crawling or rolling over or things like that. But after we came home from the NICU and we started working with some therapists, and they started to fully explain how growth and development works and how babies such as Jenna, when you adjust back for the 3 months, and how that can get confusing. So they broke it down for me really, really well. It was then that I fully understood, even more so, that all kids are on their own timeline. Those milestones, and I say this, it doesn't matter if you're a parent of a preemie or a full-term child, there are milestones and they're guide markers. It's really about the progress, not perfection. And not everyone could crawl first. And I promise you, I know this. I mean, Jenna's only 5, but when she gets to like college, no one's going to ask her, well, at what age did you start walking? It doesn't matter, right? It's about that progress. And I think as parents, and I'll say moms specifically, we get very hung up in checking boxes and is our child doing what someone else's child is doing and comparing. And I'll say it's the worst thing, especially for the parent of a preemie child, because our growth trajectories and our milestones are not only different because they tend to lag, but also those milestones sometimes occur haphazardly and out of order. So it's even more confusing.
Oh, yeah. And it's such a grounds for guilt. And we can't allow that. There's plenty that is going to influence mom guilt triggers that just naturally occur in the world of parenting. But if we can put up I know that my child's journey is something I will be here for way of thinking, the long haul. I say this to parents all the time when they come to me and their kids aren't potty trained and they should be for daycare or preschool. And I say, I promise they're not going to college in diapers, right?
Right.
This is a long game that we are playing here, and empowering our kids to feel successful and confident in every mini milestone that they meet is how you raise a kid who wants to keep reaching for the stars.
And the way that starts is having the parents also, right, feel exactly that same confidence and exude that confidence and give off that energy to their child. And likewise, it's kind of like a symbiotic relationship. When you see your child doing well and conquering tasks and meeting some milestones, that gives you fuel for yourself as well. And you know what? It's not a game of who gets there first is best. It
Nope.
has nothing to do with that. And I would argue that as a parent of a child who's needed extra love and support, the journey's that much more special and beautiful because you appreciate so much more.
Yes. Oh, you're pulling all my one-liners out today, Jodi. Especially to other lost moms who go on and have more babies. I always say you're going to experience the highest highs because you've experienced the lowest lows. And it's so true. But what you're saying is key. And you started this interview by saying you've got to surround yourself with the village that makes sense. And what did that mean for you? You've talked about other parents, you've talked about service providers who had the unique expertise to support your daughter in those early years of development. How did you tap into a village that would allow you to maintain confidence and not get caught up in the, but my baby's doing this?
Well, I'm not going to say that I'm, immune to that because, of course, that does happen. That's just the nature, and I wouldn't be human otherwise. But I think the way Jenna came into the world just gave me a whole pause and reset about how I look at life and how life, growth, development, the human spirit, how it lives and literally flourishes throughout the course of life. And I also like to think that I'm a resourceful and knowledgeable person. And I knew that knowing myself, I needed to help the process. And in helping get Jenna the help, I would also be helping myself. And that really encouraged me because when I saw her doing well, and that just gave me, I'll say, proof in the pudding that everything that I had put into curating her team was really worth it and really, really important and pivotal to her growth and development. And I will tell you that I'm super thankful to every single person who has helped us along the way. I always tell people how thankful I am because no one person can do everything, let alone I would have no idea what pediatric occupational therapy is, or pediatric physical therapy, or speech therapy, which at that point is more feeding than speech. But I would have no knowledge of that. That's just not my area of expertise. Now I can say something different. I feel like it is. But, it's also about learning and surrounding yourself with people who fill your cup with positivity. And I didn't want to be around people who were negative. Life was already hard in that moment, and I couldn't listen to someone else and them being negative. So I took a real conscious effort to surround myself with people like that, and also not to read any books or listen to anyone other than our team to tell me about Jenna's growth and development and what we needed to do with her in terms of in the off time, help her do tummy time and things of that nature. I really took it upon myself to not look elsewhere for information because I think that could be a huge detriment to anyone for any type of illness or situation. You can look at your arm and there's a mark and you're like, oh my gosh, is that cancerous? And then you look up something online, right? And you can go down a rabbit hole. Similarly, the same. And at that point also in life, there's so many unknowns with your child. They're still growing and developing and evolving. And no one has a crystal ball that can say, well, this is going to be, this isn't going to be. I just really took it upon myself to listen to the people around us. And it's, again, one of those things, fit matters, right? The person who is helping your child has to have a good rapport with that person. And likewise, the parent, because then you'll learn from them too.
Oh my gosh, there's so much goodness in there. I love that you made this point because when we have trauma in our lives, the people who are closest to us, our family, our friends, our coworkers, they show up. And they show up out of love, but sometimes their words don't make things better. And so if you're listening out there and you are someone who's experienced this and you're still mending those relationships or you're in it right now, please listen to Jodi and kind of put up your little bubble, be inside your bubble when the big work is happening, and then be with the others, but don't take what they have to say and believe that you have to follow through on it.
And that is such an important point, Cara. It's hard to insulate yourself, but I would say in this type of trauma and in this type of scenario, it's almost a necessity. Again, because there's so much white noise out there, and sometimes inadvertently, a friend or a family member could say something that they think is innocuous. However, it can be interpreted as something completely different. And, you know, give in all fairness to everyone, sometimes people just don't know what to say. And it's just better yet. I found for me, when I was talking to my friends, asking them about their lives, I didn't even want, because I didn't want anyone giving their opinion and weighing in.
Mm.
So I just asked them about their lives because to me, that was also a way for me to kind of compartmentalize what was going on with Jenna in the hospital or at home versus Jodi in the outside world.
Well, I would like some good news. So, will you tell us about Jenna and her 5-year-old self? Tell us how wonderful she is.
Well, I'll tell you, she's amazing. She's my best friend, and she's smart, she's smiley, she's spunky. I sometimes think she's going on 15 instead of, 5 years old. But, she loves to learn. She loves school. She loves activities. And I think part of that love is because she gets so much love at home, but also we have put her in the position to be in a school that supports her, that helps her, and that understands how children like her work. And I tell parents this all the time. We have to get out of our own way of what we think our kids' journey should look like, because the truth is, you're presented with a situation and then you have to deal with it. And quite often, we stand in the way of progress. And you have to put your feelings and your hopes and your dreams aside so that you can help give your child exactly what it is that he or she needs. And I'm convinced that's why she is so happy and she's thriving, because she has been in scenarios like this and we have never made her feel anything different, that there's something wrong with that.
I'm also 100% convinced of that, Jodi. It ties full circle back to that relationship piece. You made her know that she had a safe space to be who she is and whatever phase she was in and learn. But seeking the educational setting that matched her current stage of learning and was willing to follow her instead of the other way around is where the magic happens. And there's more and more opportunities for parents to seek that now, especially post pandemic, as kind of the educational model is starting to shift a little. So, thank you for putting words to that. And thank you for showing us that it works.
I think in today's day and age, we're so lucky that we live here and now, that there are so many support systems. I choose to look at, my child's educational journey as how lucky am I? She's in a class of 14 with 3 teachers and a floater. To me, that's amazing. And I think it's such a great gift, as opposed to, being in a school where there are more kids and less help and support in the classroom. So again, it comes down to that, right? Reframe or flip of the mindset. And to your point, yes, I'm so thankful that there are so many more opportunities out there for children who learn in an unorthodox way. They will get to the same answer or the same result, but just because they know that 2 + 1 + 1 = 4, and other people just look at it as 2 + 2, it makes no difference. The result's the same.
The result's the same. I have one more really pressing thing I want to ask you because it matters to my heart so much. With our goal is to raise kids who are really self-aware and they're full of all the self things, self-confidence and self-advocacy and self-belief. And I have witnessed parents who've lived early trauma with kids that didn't fully process it, kind of pass it on to their kids and make it their identity, where they, oh, well, she was born at 28 weeks. Oh, well, she was this. Oh, she's later because. How do we process our stuff well enough that we can give our kids the gift of self without passing it on to them?
Again, I think it goes to that self-awareness piece of the parents, that they want to pass along that positive, loving energy to their child. I always say, prematurity doesn't define you. It's a stage in life, but it doesn't define who you are, who your child is going to be. If anything, I think that it teaches both the parents and the child resiliency and strength and muscle memory that they could call upon for later on in life when they have challenges. And I'll also say that we're always applauding Jenna for all of her wins. That's not to say she doesn't have challenges, but I think it's important because that goes to the confidence piece. You want your child to love being a little kid and not growing up thinking that their parents are worried all the time. And for me, it was important to always compartmentalize that, and that she doesn't see that energy. Similarly, when I would walk into the NICU every day, I would sit there to myself before, scrubbing in. I would say, Jodi, this is not about you. Whatever it is that you're feeling, we can deal with that when you come back out the doors. But inside those doors, it's all about Jenna and loving on her and just fulfilling her with positive energy.
Oh, wow. Well, you are the exact right model that we need. And I'll tell you, those words that you just said, resilience and persistence and grit, those are the characteristics that this generation will need more than anything in order to survive the world that is changing at such a rapid pace. So I know that you are a self-starter and you took this experience of yours and you took your newfound knowledge and you created something beautiful with it. And so now you are the founder of a company that provides support for other parents going through this NICU situation in their life. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Yes, I created a company called Flourish, and you've probably heard me mention the word flourishing a couple of times. But I believe in life, we're all always growing and evolving and learning new things. Now, while you and I might not be physically growing every day, we're still nourishing and growing in our brains and everything else. And so I call the company Flourish because it relates to parents and kids just the same, because we are all growing and learning. And specifically, Flourish seeks to empower, educate, and support parents on their journey through the NICU and the years beyond, simply because our first couple of years are very different than those of full-term parents. And it's all about mindset shift and knowing that, okay, the milk has spilled. What do we do now that we have to pick up the pieces, so to speak? And so it's about that. It's about giving parents tips and tools to help navigate the educational system, the early intervention system, providing them with support networks as to where they can go to get specialists, financial aid where they can go for that. So it's all of these tips and tools, plus audio stories and one-on-one coaching with me. Because you know what? It does take a while to process trauma, and there's no timetable for that. And no one should say, well, your child, is 8 years old, so this shouldn't bother you anymore. Well, you know what? It can bother a person as long as it's going to bother a person. And I believe that the sooner we can help other parents work through those residual feelings, the better off they will be and their child will be. And by doing that, you set your child up for success.
Absolutely. So, if you are a NICU parent, or if you know someone who is currently going through this or has some emotion they still really need to work through, then Jodi is offering a one-on-one complimentary consultation call, and that link will be in the show notes. Please take her up on it, even if it's just to have a short chat to find out where you are, because you've kind of lost track of your own journey because you're focusing so much on your child's.
Yes. And I also want to say this to all the parents out there, and self-care is not selfish. And knowing that you need help to get you to the place where you want to be is a sign of strength, not weakness. And I think we as a society really need to spin those two narratives up to the forefront because it's really that important. We can't provide if we don't fill our own cup. Also, we need to learn how to process in a safe space that's free from judgment.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for everything that you're doing for your daughter and for all these other families who are now going to be replicating that beautiful space that you have created in your home. We really appreciate you, Jodi.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Cara. And likewise, same for all the work that you do and all the goodness that you spread throughout your work as well.
Mission giving is so important to both of us. Well, for all of you parents out there, thank you so much for being who you are and caring enough to sit and listen to a podcast episode that is going to do exactly what Jodi said, this mindset shift and this perspective shift. And until the next episode, stay mindful and proactive as we transform the toddler years.